You know that feeling when you pour your heart and soul into a project, you work so hard on it, only to find out it wasn't actually what was needed? Ugh. Well, today we're going to talk about a simple idea that helps prevent that exact feeling. It's called validation testing, and really, it's just a way to make sure you're building the right thing right from the very start.
Okay, let's start with something super relatable. Pizza. So imagine you've been craving it all day. You finally order your perfect, custom pizza. I'm talking pepperoni, extra cheese, mushrooms, the whole deal. The delivery arrives, you open that box with so much excitement, and it's covered in pineapple. Now look, the pizza itself might be cooked perfectly, right? But it's not the one you wanted. So a wrong pizza, that's, a pretty minor frustration. But what if that pizza was actually a new medical record system for a hospital, or the online portal you use for your student loans? Suddenly, that same kind of small misunderstanding about what was actually needed, well, it has much, much more serious consequences.
And this is where the real cost of getting it wrong comes in. It brings us to our first big idea here. We're talking about what happens when a simple misunderstanding isn't just about pizza toppings anymore, but about a whole lot of time, money, and effort.
See, in the world of software and product development, this is probably one of the most expensive mistakes you can possibly make. You can have teams build something that is technically perfect. I mean, it's fast, it's totally bug-free, it looks amazing, but if it doesn't actually solve the user's real problem, then what was the point? All of that time, all that effort, all that money, it just got spent building completely the wrong thing.
So how do we avoid that trap of building the wrong thing? Well, it turns out we have to constantly ask ourselves one really fundamental question. And this right here, this is the heart of validation testing, and it's going to be our second big idea.
There was this pioneer in software engineering, his name was Barry Boehm, and he captured this entire idea in one super simple question. He defined validation as the whole process of just asking, are we building the right product? That's it. And this is so important because it highlights the huge difference between validation and its close cousin, verification. I mean, just look at the single word change. Verification asks, are we building the product right? So does it match the technical plan, the blueprint? But validation asks the much, much bigger question, are we building the right product? Does it actually solve a real person's real-world need? You can absolutely have a perfectly verified product that is completely and totally wrong for the user.
It's such a tiny difference in the wording, right? Just one word. But it is a massive difference in focus. And just asking that small question early and asking it often, it prevents a really big headache down the road.
Okay, so if validation is all about meeting the user's real needs, then how do we actually figure out what those are? This brings us to our next idea, which is all about learning to look beyond just the written order.
The author Ian Somerville explains this so perfectly. He says that the written instructions, the official list of requirements and features, they don't always capture the whole story. Sometimes what people write down, or even what they think they want, isn't actually what they need to solve their real underlying problem.
So you see, validation isn't just about checking the final product, it's about checking the plan itself. It's about asking these deeper questions right from the get-go. Like, first, is this feature even needed? Is it valid? Then, we have to ask about realistic. Can we even build this with the time and the tech we have? And finally, verifiability. How are we going to know for sure when it's done correctly?
Ultimately, it all comes down to taking that moment to just pause and make sure you really, truly understand the why behind the what. But hey, no matter how well you think you understand the why, you still have to confirm that your solution actually works for people. And that brings us to the final stage of this whole process. You could call it the moment of truth, and that is testing with real users. Because at the end of the day, no matter how great your plan is, the ultimate test is putting your creation into the hands of the person who's actually going to use it. This final, super critical check-in, that's what's known as acceptance testing.
And this check-in usually happens in a few stages. First up, you've got alpha testing. Just think of it like a private screening with a small, trusted group, maybe right there in the office. Next comes beta testing, which is more like a limited public release. You let a wider group of real users test it out in their own environment, in the real world. And finally, there's the formal acceptance testing. This is the official sign-off, where the customer basically says, yep, this is fit for purpose, this is what we needed.
There's a famous saying that comes out of the open source community that just captures the power of this so well.
It goes, give it enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. The idea is simple. When you get enough real users looking at your product, all those problems that seem super complex or were maybe even invisible to the people who built it, they suddenly become really obvious.
And it's just a beautiful reminder that listening isn't just something you do at the beginning of a project. It's also the final, absolutely essential step of building something well.
Now, all this might sound like it's just for big software companies, right? But the core idea here is so useful for literally anything you create. So let's talk about how you can turn this into a simple habit of conversation, whether it's for a group project for school or even just a personal passion project.
Really? The simplest way to do it is to think of validation less like a scary formal test and more like an ongoing conversation. Just check in early and check in often. Ask simple, clarifying questions like, hey, when you click this button, what do you actually expect to happen? And maybe most importantly, show your work instead of just describing it. I mean, a quick sketch or a super simple prototype can clear up misunderstandings almost instantly.
Because in the end, that's what validation really is. It's just the simple human habit of making sure that we understand each other. And building anything great, I don't care if it's a pizza or a piece of software, it almost always comes down to just that, understanding people.